Stop right there. Have you ever felt like you were doing everything right, but you still weren't happy? Like you tried to be more positive, more successful, more loved. Yet somehow you were still stuck in a loop of stress and anxiety. Trust me, you're not the only one. And here's the kicker. According to Mark Manson's eye-opening book, The Subtle Art of Not Giving a Fuck, or as we call it, not giving a damn in this video, everything we've been taught about chasing happiness might be backward. Yes, that's the real title, folks, courtesy of Mark Manson himself. In this video, we're gonna do a massive, in-depth exploration of his book. If you've never heard of it, you're in for some major perspective shifts. If you have heard of it, buckle up anyway, because we're about to add layers of real-life stories and modern-day psychology research to keep your mind wide open. By the end of this video, if you stay with me, you'll learn about the paradox of trying too hard, why suffering actually matters more than you think, and how accepting your own flaws could be the path to real freedom. Intrigued yet? Good. Because most of us have been spinning our wheels, caring way too much about everything, from the length of our eyelashes to how many Instagram likes we get. And it's actually ruining our peace of mind. Before I even touch on the chapters, let's nail down the core problem Manson addresses. Why are we so stressed? And how did we get so fixated on being happy 24/7? Because let's be real, whether you're a millennial trying to juggle a demanding job and an unpredictable social life, a Gen Z who's bombarded with TikTok perfection, or a seasoned professional feeling behind on life, there's this constant tension. Everywhere we look, Instagram, YouTube ads, self-help gurus, it's always, be better, be richer, be more admired, be more perfect. It's like a broken record that never stops playing. But Mark Manson flips the script. He basically says, hey, you're never going to be perfectly happy and that's okay. On the surface, that sounds negative, right? But the deeper you go, the more you realize it's actually liberating. For instance, most of us think, if I can just solve all my problems, then I'll be carefree and happy. Manson's key insight: you're always going to have problems. So the real challenge is choosing the right ones to care about, or in other words, picking what truly deserves your attention. Now I get it. You might be wondering, wait, are we just throwing optimism out the window? Not quite. The idea is that overfocusing on positivity can cause us to feel like we're failing. We see everyone else's highlight reel on social media and think, why aren't I that happy? But Mark Manson points out, the more you chase happiness, the more you realize what you don't have, and ironically, that can leave you miserable. This is a huge theme we'll see running through every chapter, so keep it pinned in your mind. According to Manson, one major misconception is that we have some cosmic right to be blissed out at all times. Culturally, we've grown used to the idea that if we're not feeling good, something is wrong with us. But guess what? Sometimes feeling bad is just part of how our brains are wired to adapt. Negative feelings can be signals that something needs to change. That's not bad, it can actually be useful. But if we judge ourselves for having negative emotions, like, oh, I'm anxious about being anxious, we tumble into what Manson calls a feedback loop from hell. In short, the more we fight those bad feelings, the bigger they grow. Ever notice how we get worked up over stuff that, in the grand scheme of the universe, is so trivial? Like your coworker's weird look in the hallway or that random troll comment on your new post. Why do we give these things so much emotional energy? Manson says it's because we're conditioned to believe everything should be perfect for us all the time. So the moment something goes wrong, someone cuts us off in traffic, or we drop our phone on the floor, our brains freak out. This can't be happening to me. This is so unfair. But if we realize that imperfection is inevitable, we can save ourselves from these meltdown moments. All right, so that's the big picture. We're not built for constant bliss. We're built for facing problems head-on. The real question becomes, how can we be more strategic about which problems we choose to tackle? That's where we kick things off in Chapter 1, an absolute banger that sets the rebellious yet strangely comforting tone of this entire part of the book. You ready? We'll dive into why not trying so hard might actually unlock the resilience we've been chasing. And it all starts with an unlikely muse, the late author-poet Charles Bukowski. Chapter 1, Don't Try. Chapter 1 is titled Don't Try. Now, if that's not a big enough departure from most self-help advice, where they're always telling us to try harder, shoot for the stars, Mark Manson is basically giving us a paradoxical statement right out of the gate. Mark Manson references the writer Charles Bukowski. Bukowski was, by conventional standards, a loser. He struggled with alcoholism, had a messy personal life, got rejected by publishers nonstop. Yet, ironically, he became successful because he leaned into exactly who he was, flaws, vices, and all. He didn't try to be some perfect role model. He wrote with brutal honesty about feeling like a deadbeat, and that resonated deeply with people. On Bukowski's tombstone, it literally says, "Don't try." This is the spirit Mark Manson is pointing to. Not that you never put in effort at anything, but that you stop forcing an image of yourself just to impress others or quiet your insecurities. When you constantly push to appear successful or confident or happy, ironically, you highlight how not confident or not happy you truly feel. It's what Manson calls a negative feedback loop. The more you cling to an ideal, the more you notice you're not there yet. Let me give you a modern example. We've all been to that party where the host is hyper about making sure everyone's having fun. Like they float around asking, "Is everything okay? Do you want more drinks? Is the music good? Are the lights too bright?" They're so desperate for everyone to have the time of their lives that ironically it becomes stressful for the guests. You pick up on that tension, and instead of enjoying yourself, you're worried about their anxiety. This is exactly what Manson and the phrase "don't try" is about. The more we try to force positivity, the more we project a sense of lack. It's the largest cosmic joke. Forcing anything ironically pushes it away. According to Manson, real growth is about acknowledging your weaknesses and limitations and allowing yourself to be real about it. If you're a slow reader, accept that. If you're shy in social settings, own it. Oddly enough, once you accept a flaw, you can address it productively. But as long as you're in denial, your energy is consumed by masking it. Here's something from modern psychology that dovetails with Manson's argument: the concept of ironic process theory. In a nutshell, it suggests that the more you try not to think about something, say your failures, the more your mind fixates on it. So if you're telling yourself 24/7, "I must be confident, I must be successful, I must be calm," your brain is ironically scanning for any sign that you're not confident, successful, or calm. That's mental quicksand right there. That's why "don't try" is a stroke of genius. It's a snappy phrase that reminds us, stop forcing it. Put your energy where it counts, and if you're going to care about something meaningful, not about forcing an image. That leads us directly into the broader thesis of Chapter 2, which is that, get this, happiness is actually a problem. No, really, Manson literally says it. Happiness is a problem. Chapter 2, Happiness is a Problem. Chapter 2 hits us with a statement that defies everything we've been taught about chasing the good life. Happiness is a problem. Now, obviously, Mark Manson isn't saying that feeling happy is bad. He's pointing out that we misunderstand the nature of happiness. We treat it like a constant state, a finish line, or a right. Manson says, happiness is found solving problems, not avoiding them. One big story Manson uses is the legend of the Buddha, who was first sheltered by extreme luxury in a palace, and then starved himself in asceticism. He discovered that no matter where you go, there's some form of suffering. And that's the point. Humans have a knack for always finding new problems. Even if you're Elon Musk, you have money problems, just on a different scale than someone living paycheck to paycheck. The difference is in how you tackle those problems. Instead of expecting to eliminate them, you can aim to solve or improve them. But they never fully go away. That's reality. Once you fix your finances, you'll find new complexities in your relationships. Solve that and something else pops up. This is normal, not a sign that you're failing. Manson introduces a hypothetical superhero called Disappointment Panda, whose superpower is telling people harsh truths they need to hear. It's a funny concept, but it's also potent. For us to truly grow, we need real talk, not the sugarcoating, not the endless positivity. We need someone to say, you keep failing because you're not actually putting in the hours. Or, your relationship falls apart because you run from conflict, not because you're unlucky in love. Ouch, but that's how we fix root problems. Here's the uncomfortable truth. We suffer in part because suffering helps us adapt. Pain is a signal that we have to change something. It's how we evolve to survive. Think about it. If you never felt hungry, you'd starve to death. If you never felt heartbreak, you'd never learn how to be emotionally vulnerable or set boundaries. So ironically, trying to run from pain or discomfort 24/7 denies us the lessons pain is there to teach. Let's talk about the concept known as the hedonic treadmill. Studies show that when people gain something, like more money, better health, a new house, they feel happier, but only for a short time before returning to a baseline level of happiness. Then, guess what? They want more. For Mark Manson, this is why happiness is a problem. If you treat happiness as the end goal, you'll get stuck on the treadmill, always needing the next thing. Instead, if you see life as a succession of problems, some big, some small, you can pick the ones that matter to you. Then solving those becomes meaningful. You'll realize that's a more reliable source of fulfillment. Imagine you land your dream job, great pay, fancy office, unlimited coffee. The first few months, you're on cloud 9. Then you discover the job demands 70-hour weeks, your boss emails you at 2 a.m. and the coffee machine breaks down half the time. New problems. You can either whine, "This shouldn't be happening, I did everything right," or you can adapt. Find a system for responding to your boss's late-night messages, schedule breaks, negotiate your workload. The point is, the problems never disappeared, they just became a new set. And if you're okay with that, you'll find a stable kind of happiness in managing them, rather than expecting them to vanish. All this begs a question. If we shouldn't chase happiness as the main goal, then what do we do about those relentless cultural messages telling us we're special? Because trust me, you've heard them. You're unique, you're extraordinary, you deserve the best. Chapter 3, titled "You Are Not Special," is a direct confrontation of that narrative. Get ready because it's about to get real. Next up, we talk about how misguided self-esteem movements created a generation that might feel good, but can't handle adversity. Chapter 3, You Are Not Special. Chapter 3, You Are Not Special. If you felt an immediate sting hearing that, guess what? That's kind of the point. Mark Manson argues that an overblown sense of specialness or entitlement can backfire dramatically, like thinking you're God's gift to the human race. But there's another side. People who see themselves as uniquely broken also indulge in a weird form of entitlement. Essentially, they say, "No one's had it as hard as me. No one can understand my problems. Everyone else should accommodate my triggers and limitations." Both attitudes revolve around an overemphasis on self. Manson shares an anecdote, we'll call him Jimmy, about a guy who always name drops, brags about business ventures that never materialize, and mooches off others' money. He's got massive self-esteem but no real accomplishments. So how does that happen? For decades, certain educational and cultural movements said, "Make kids feel like rock stars, give out participation trophies. Pump them up with positivity." Meanwhile, they never had to earn anything. So these kids grow up thinking they deserve success merely by existing. Funny in a skit, but in real life it's no joke. When someone who's grown up with that constant praise faces real-world hardship, like failing a college exam or being rejected by a job, they can't handle it. They might blame the system or blame society or decide they must have been sabotaged. Anything to avoid admitting, "Maybe I need to improve." This can create a bubble where they either see themselves as perpetually better than or perpetually a victim. Entitlement isn't just annoying, it's destructive. If you think you deserve admiration without doing anything of value, you'll constantly resent people who don't give it to you. Or if you think your suffering is more special than everyone else's, you won't connect with others' experiences. You remain isolated, anxious, and ironically less happy. Research in psychology suggests that kids praised solely for their talent rather than their effort often become more fragile. They fear failure because it threatens their identity as a talented person. They're less likely to take on challenging tasks because they might be exposed as not talented. Mark Manson's statement that "you are not special" is a direct way of saying, stop obsessing over how the world sees you, focus on the actual work and growth. Picture someone who claims they deserve rock-hard abs because, "Well, I'm special, and my mother always said I had an athletic build." They go to the gym once, do a few half-hearted reps, then bail. 2 weeks later, they're complaining they see no results. They might blame the trainer, blame their metabolism, or blame the gym's atmosphere. But that's entitlement, believing you should have the reward without the consistent grind. Manson's approach says, you need to acknowledge your ordinariness, and that's okay. Once you embrace your average baseline, that's when you can truly measure improvement. It also frees you from the stress of always having to be better than everyone else. Oddly enough, Manson says that letting go of the idea that you're ultra-special can be the best thing for your mental well-being. Why? Because you no longer feel pressure to be the best at everything. You can focus on what matters to you, what you enjoy, and make consistent progress there. And when you fail, it's not a catastrophic identity crisis. It's just a part of the process. Chapter 4, The Value of Suffering. Now, if you're anything like me, the word suffering might make you cringe. Who wants suffering? But the point Mark Manson drives home is that suffering isn't just some glitch in life system. It can be a feature that helps us refine what matters most to us. Manson breaks down the concept of values, the beliefs or standards we use to measure success and worth. If your values are unhealthy, like wanting to be popular all the time or always needing approval, your sense of self-worth will swing up and down. That's because you're measuring yourself against criteria you can't fully control. For example, let's say your value is everyone must love me. The minute someone criticizes your work or your fashion sense, it feels like a threat to your entire identity. Cue meltdown. In contrast, healthy values are reality-based, socially constructive, and within your control. Think about honesty. It's something you can choose no matter what others do. Or creativity. You can do your craft, write, draw, compose, even if no one applauds. By picking healthier values, you also pick healthier problems. The suffering required for honesty might be short-term embarrassment, but at least it's purposeful. It aligns with who you want to be. Imagine two musicians, trophy chaser, obsessed with getting awards, streaming numbers, and big record deals. If their album doesn't chart, they crumble. Their entire identity is threatened because their value hinges on external recognition. Passion chaser, focused on writing music that touches people's emotions. Sure, they hope for success, but the measure is, did I express myself genuinely? That value is in their control. Even if the album sells only a few hundred copies, they find meaning in the creative process. Manson's point: your chosen values will determine where you invest your energy and inevitably where your suffering occurs. So pick the suffering that resonates with your deeper purpose. Mark Manson spells out some examples of bad values. Number 1, pleasure. If you live for momentary fun only, you'll never have deeper fulfillment. Number 2, always being right. Impossible, because we're all fallible, and it makes you unbearable to be around. Number 3, staying positive. Wait, that's a bad value. According to Manson, if you fixate on positivity and avoid all negativity, you deny reality and never confront necessary problems. Here's the paradox. If you embrace the right suffering, like the daily grind of practicing guitar or the sweaty hustle of training for a marathon, you end up forging stronger relationships, greater confidence, and a life that feels grounded. That's because you're measuring success by the effort and the authenticity you put in, rather than by superficial illusions. Picture the difference between someone who complains about going to the gym, "Ugh, I have to sweat, I hate it," and someone who sees workouts as a chance to prove discipline. Both suffer the same physical strain, but the second person reaps deeper satisfaction because they chose that challenge as part of their healthy value. Being strong, not for applause, but for personal well-being. This closely connects to what psychologists call intrinsic versus extrinsic motivation. People driven by intrinsic motivation do things because they find personal meaning or enjoyment in the activity itself. People driven by extrinsic motivation chase external rewards or validation, like money, likes, or superficial praise. Research consistently shows that intrinsic motivation leads to higher satisfaction, better performance, and more resilience when challenges arise. In Manson's terms, healthy values like curiosity, honesty, compassion are typically intrinsic. They reward you from within. So Chapter 4 is about the liberating realization that suffering can be valuable. It's the price we pay for living our values. If you pick shallow, external-based values, your suffering might be meaningless. But if you pick deeper, personal values like kindness, creativity, resilience, your inevitable challenges become stepping stones to growth. All right, so you might be thinking, but wait, how do I choose these values, especially if I was raised to care about external stuff only? That's where Chapter 5, "You Are Always Choosing," swoops in. Mark Manson will show us how our sense of responsibility, even for things that aren't our fault, shapes our power. Chapter 5, "You Are Always Choosing." In Chapter 5, Mark Manson breaks down one of the most empowering and sometimes terrifying concepts. We have more choice than we realize. The chapter's big message: we might not be at fault for everything that happens to us, but we're always responsible for how we handle it. Manson clarifies, fault is about who caused the problem. Responsibility is about who deals with it. For example, if a drunk driver hits your car, it's obviously not your fault. But, and this part might sting, it is your responsibility to deal with the aftermath: insurance, repairs, emotional trauma. Blaming the driver might feel justified, but it doesn't fix your reality. Manson says that accepting responsibility is the only way to reclaim agency. Picture this: you're renting an apartment and one day water starts dripping from the ceiling. You call the landlord, but they can't fix it for a week. Meanwhile, your living room might flood. Is that your fault? No. But is it your responsibility to protect your stuff from water damage and find a temporary solution? Absolutely. You could whine and do nothing, but that just makes life worse for you. Manson also warns about the victimhood trap. When you cling to "it's not fair" or "I was wronged," you might be right factually, but you become powerless emotionally. You've handed over your sense of control to external forces. Manson's approach: claim that responsibility so you can solve the next steps. That might involve tough love. If your friend betrays you, you can't blame yourself for their actions. But you can choose whether you'll address the conflict, step away from the friendship, or go to therapy. Doing nothing because "it's not my fault" leaves you stuck. Psychologists often talk about the locus of control. People with an internal locus of control believe they have significant influence over their life outcomes, so they tend to be more proactive and resilient. People with an external locus often feel life just happens to them, breeding helplessness. Manson's message echoes this. If you accept responsibility, anyway, you naturally develop an internal locus of control, feeling freer to act. Let's say you lose your job because your company went bankrupt. Not your fault, right? True. But you are responsible for the next step, searching for a new job, retraining, tapping your network, maybe even pivoting careers. Manson would say it's unproductive to keep repeating, "They screwed me over," because while it might be true, it doesn't get you any closer to a paycheck. Try this for one full day whenever an inconvenience happens: spilled coffee, a delayed train, or a boss's meltdown. Practice saying, "I'm responsible for how I respond to this." Write it down. Notice how your mindset shifts from blame to solution. That's you choosing to handle your reality rather than fault-finding and letting negative emotions eat you alive. So that's Chapter 5 in a nutshell. We all have more choice and responsibility than we think. It might be daunting, but it's also our ticket to empowerment. Next up in Chapter 6, "You're wrong about everything, but so am I." Manson shows why it's crucial to be open to being wrong, and how embracing that can actually make us better people. Chapter 6, "You're wrong about everything, but so am I." Chapter 6 explores a big, humbling idea. All of us are wrong about something, pretty much all the time. Mark Manson says we never have a perfect grip on reality, and ironically, that's okay. It's what allows us to keep learning, growing, and evolving. Our beliefs are shaped by personal experiences, biases, incomplete knowledge, and cultural conditioning. As we age, we hope to get better at discarding the beliefs that no longer serve us. But if you're stuck in the "I must always be right" mentality, which is a bad value, remember, you'll cling to your worldview even when evidence suggests otherwise. Manson cites how a fixation on certainty can cripple us. If you think you know everything, you stop listening, stop learning, and ironically start failing more because you never adapt. The more certain you try to be, the less you'll actually question your assumptions. And guess what? Life is always throwing curveballs that require rethinking what we know. Manson also mentions something akin to the concept that we avoid what threatens our identity. If you see yourself as the smartest person in the room, you might avoid challenges or people who could show you otherwise. You'll dodge evidence that disconfirms your self-image, leading to stagnation. In short, fear of being wrong keeps you from becoming more right in the future. Look at how fast technology evolves. You might have believed 30 years ago that no one would shop for groceries online. Oops, now nearly everyone does. If you'd clung to your old assumption, you'd never invest in developing new skills or business approaches. Embracing the possibility of being wrong helps you pivot quickly to new realities. This lines up with Carol Dweck's growth mindset theory. A growth mindset thrives on challenges and sees failure not as evidence of unintelligence, but as a springboard for growth. That's similar to Manson's idea that we should embrace our potential wrongness. Each time we discover we're wrong, it's a chance to refine our worldview. Mark Manson doesn't say we should feel bad about being wrong. On the contrary, being comfortable with the unknown fosters curiosity, empathy, and adaptability. Think about how many personal or professional relationships break down because one person or group can't admit error or doubt. Now imagine if both sides said, "We might be wrong, let's explore this together." Way more progress, right? By acknowledging that we're wrong about things, we free ourselves to take more risks, learn from the stumbles, and come out better. And that segues directly into Chapter 7, Failure is the Way Forward. We're about to see how Manson builds on this acceptance of being wrong, turning failure into our greatest teacher. Ready to fail forward. Chapter 7, Failure is the Way Forward. So Chapter 7 might be my personal favorite. Failure is the way forward. It's a direct challenge to the idea that success means never messing up. In reality, Manson says, success is built atop stacks of small, manageable failures. The difference is how you process them and keep moving. Manson points out two famous musicians. Dave Mustaine was kicked out of Metallica before they got huge. He went on to form Megadeth, which is massively successful in its own right. But for years, he felt like a failure because he was still comparing himself to Metallica's unmatched fame. Pete Best, the original Beatles drummer, got fired before they soared to stardom. You'd think that's tragic, right? But years later, Pete Best claimed he found happiness in a quiet family life and smaller successes, no longer overshadowed by the Beatles' insane popularity. The moral: it's not the external measure, like who sells more records, that truly defines success or failure. It's how you frame it according to your values. Mustaine initially used Metallica-level fame as the only standard for success, so he felt miserable. Pete Best reframed his life around family and personal contentment, so he moved on happily despite missing the big time. Manson also promotes the idea that real learning demands we fail repeatedly at the margins of our ability, then adjust. It's the classic trial-and-error method. If you fear failure too much, you never attempt anything bold. Thus, ironically, you guarantee you won't succeed at all. Typically, we think, I need motivation, then I'll take action, and then I'll get results. But Manson flips this with a simple formula. Number 1, action first, just start something, even if you feel unmotivated. Number 2, inspiration follows because once you see a small result, your brain perks up. Number 3, motivation grows from that spark, fueling further action. That means if you want to write a novel, don't wait for the perfect vibe. Write a page now, see how it feels. That little accomplishment might spark a bigger wave of inspiration. Next thing you know, you're halfway through Chapter 1. The fear of failure gets replaced by momentum. I know an aspiring writer who dreamed of publishing a novel but kept delaying because their drafts felt messy. Instead of waiting for the perfect story, they committed to writing daily, embracing clunky sentences and weak plots as part of the process. With each revision, they improved, sharpening dialogue, refining structure, and learning from feedback. Over time, those early, imperfect drafts evolved into a compelling manuscript. Had they waited for a flawless first draft, they'd still be staring at a blank page. Manson basically begs us to go fail at something that matters. If you want to become a decent painter, expect dozens of messy canvases. If you're learning guitar, expect squeaky chords and missed beats. The only path forward is to keep practicing and messing up until your skill aligns with your vision. This is how you grow. And that leads us to Chapter 8, the importance of saying no. Think about it. Part of failing forward is dropping what's not serving you. Sometimes you have to reject unhelpful commitments or toxic relationships to make space for what truly aligns with your values. Let's see how Manson frames this next part. Chapter 8, the importance of saying no. All right, Chapter 8, the importance of saying no. Here, Manson tackles something surprisingly underdiscussed in the self-help world, the power of rejection. Whether it's rejecting bad relationships, turning down job offers that don't match your values, or saying no to obligations that drain your soul, learning to say no is a key step in living a focused, intentional life. Manson emphasizes that real happiness isn't about limitless freedom, but about commitment to a few crucial things. Commit to the right person, and you're rejecting all other romantic possibilities. Commit to a career path, and you're saying no to alternative routes. That might sound limiting, but ironically, it gives you freedom from distraction and dabbling. You double down on what matters to you. In personal relationships, we often fear saying no because we want to keep the peace. But Manson argues that conflict, boundaries, and even rejection are essential for authentic connection. If your friend crosses a line or your partner disrespects your needs, You have to speak up. A relationship that can't handle honest boundaries is built on shaky ground. Ever been on a date where you basically say yes to everything the other person suggests, even if you hate that restaurant or you're allergic to that cat cafe? You might think you're being agreeable, but you're actually hiding your true preferences. Over time, that leads to resentment or a lack of genuine intimacy. Manson says a strong relationship is forged by two people who can handle hearing and giving a respectful no. Another aspect is this modern plague of FOMO, fear of missing out. We dread turning down a party invite or a new project because we might miss some big opportunity. But as Manson points out, you can't do everything. If you try, you'll spread yourself so thin that you never fully invest in the important endeavors. Picture a college student who joins 10 clubs to rack up credentials. Soon, they're too exhausted to excel in any single area. They're half-heartedly present at all the meetings, but not truly learning or contributing. Manson would say, pick the clubs that align with your best values, say no to the rest. Then you can go deeper, build actual skills or relationships, and avoid burnout. Saying no sometimes triggers guilt or fear will be judged as selfish. But Manson insists that controlled selfishness, protecting your emotional and mental resources so you can give your best to what and who matters, is not only healthy but essential. By carefully choosing your commitments, you invest meaningfully in them instead of scattering your energy everywhere. And that sets the stage for the book's final chapter. And then you die. It might sound grim, but Mark Manson uses mortality to bring everything full circle. Because if you only have so many years left, then the yeses and nos you speak become that much more significant. Ready for the grand finale? Let's dive into death and how it can actually be a source of life-affirming power. Chapter 9, and then you die. The final chapter, and then you die. Don't worry, this is Mark Manson telling us to mope around. Instead, it's an invitation to face our mortality head-on so we stop wasting time on trivial stuff that doesn't align with our values. Manson argues that most of us live like we have infinite tomorrows. That illusion leads us to procrastinate our dreams, put off tough conversations, and give endless fucks about nonsense. But the brutal truth is we're all on a timer. By accepting our future death, we're freed to focus on what matters now. It's like, if you knew you only had a year to live, would you still obsess about that argument on Facebook? Or that random coworker who didn't invite you to their lunch? Probably not. You'd pour your energy into deeper experiences, quality time with loved ones, creative passions, or traveling to see the world. Manson also frames it as, what do you want your legacy to be? Because that's what often remains after you die, your impact on others. Maybe you want to be remembered for your kindness or your invention or the family you nurtured. Let your mortality push you toward more purposeful living. Interestingly, psychologists have studied something called terror management theory, which says that a big chunk of human behavior stems from how we cope with the knowledge that we'll eventually die. Some people chase fame or wealth as a way to live on symbolically, but Manson suggests that a simpler way to handle our finite existence is to accept it, and then use it as a compass to guide our choices. A friend of mine told me that after attending a funeral for a relative, she had a light bulb moment. Why am I complaining about petty arguments and skipping the things that truly matter to me, like painting or traveling, when I could be gone tomorrow? That raw, emotional realization made her drop some obligations she'd hated and invest more time in her art. She said it was one of the best decisions she ever made. All these previous chapters, don't try. Happiness is a problem. You are not special. The value of suffering. You are always choosing. You're wrong about everything. Failure is the way forward. The importance of saying no lead to the final note. Once you accept that your time is limited, you see which commitments, relationships, and projects deserve your precious energy. Mark Manson isn't telling us to be reckless. He's telling us to be mindful of life's fragility, so we can live more boldly and sincerely. Folks, we've come a long way in unpacking the core messages of Mark Manson's brilliant book. So let's recap our biggest revelations before we end on a truly epic note. Chapter 1, Don't Try. Stop forcing or chasing an image of perfection. When you care too much about what others think, you ironically draw more attention to your insecurities. True confidence grows when you accept your weaknesses and let go of the pressure to appear perfect. Chapter 2. Happiness is a problem. Life is a series of problems, and happiness emerges when we focus on solving meaningful ones. Trying to avoid or eliminate all problems is futile, and ironically, that avoidance itself becomes a bigger problem. We can't outrun pain, we can only choose the type of pain that aligns with our values. Chapter 3. You are not special. Feeling entitled, whether it's an entitlement of superiority or of victimhood, can isolate you and sabotage growth. Accepting that you're not inherently above or below others is liberating. It allows you to measure your progress realistically and embrace the joys and struggles we all face. Chapter 4. The value of suffering. Suffering is unavoidable, but it can be purposeful if you choose it in service of your deeper values. Picking better problems allows you to confront challenges that matter instead of wasting energy on trivial pain. Ultimately, suffering can clarify what's truly important. Chapter 5. You are always choosing. Even when it's not your fault, it's still your responsibility. Blaming external forces strips away your power to respond effectively. By owning your reactions and decisions, you gain the freedom to shape your life instead of feeling victimized by it. Chapter 6. You're wrong about everything, but so am I. We rarely see the full truth and are often mistaken in our beliefs. Embracing uncertainty and the possibility of being wrong keeps you open-minded and humble. This willingness to question yourself fosters genuine growth and adaptability. Chapter 7. Failure is the way forward. Progress is built on a foundation of small, frequent failures. The key is learning from each misstep and pressing on. Waiting for perfection leads to inaction. Instead, take a leap, mess up, and use those lessons to fuel continuous improvement. Chapter 8. The importance of saying no. Setting boundaries is not selfish, it's essential. Every yes to something unimportant is a no to what truly matters. Learn to reject obligations, people, or expectations that don't align with your values. This focus deepens commitment to the things and relationships you do choose. Chapter 9. And then you die. Confronting mortality can feel unsettling, but it's a powerful reminder that your time is finite. By acknowledging life's impermanence, you stop sweating trivial matters and start devoting energy to what's genuinely fulfilling, leaving a meaningful legacy, however modest, in the time you have. All right, let's do a quick timeout and bring in some actionable steps. Mark Manson's philosophy isn't just about reading and nodding, it's about doing. I'm going to give you a handful of psychological hacks and challenges. Each one correlates to the key takeaways from these chapters. Number 1, value check. Step: write down 5 values you believe guide your life, e.g., family, honesty, creativity, independence, service. Next to each, jot a note about why it matters and whether it's intrinsic, you control it, or extrinsic, it depends on others' approval. Implementation: if any value is purely external, like, I want everyone to think I'm smart, consider shifting it to something you can control. I want to learn something new every day. Why it works: this ensures your suffering is aligned with what you deeply care about, not random illusions. Number 2, embrace a healthy problem instead of escaping it. Step: think of something you're running from, like your finances, your fitness, or a tough conversation with a friend. Instead of avoiding it, try approaching it head-on in a small, manageable way. Implementation: if finances stress you out, schedule an hour to list your income, expenses, and debt. No sugarcoating, no ignoring. Just face it. Why it works: this is exactly what Manson means by happiness is found solving problems. You'll feel a subtle relief just by stepping onto the field to handle it, even if you don't fix everything overnight. Number 3, track your entitlement. Step: for the next few days, watch your internal monologue for statements like, I deserve, or I shouldn't have to. Implementation: each time you catch yourself thinking you're owed something, example, I deserve better traffic. Reframe it. What small choice can I make to handle this better? Why it works: you shift from a passive, resentful stance to an active, responsible one, deflating any illusions of specialness or victimhood. Number 4, the I could be wrong mantra. Step: start each day telling yourself, I could be wrong about something important. Remain open to contradictory evidence and see it as a chance to grow. Implementation: when someone challenges your viewpoint, instead of going on the defensive, ask questions. Why it works: this fosters a growth mindset and kills the stress of needing to be infallible. Number 5, fail intentionally, then learn. Step: pick a small skill you suck at, like learning a new language or drawing. Dedicate 10-15 minutes a day to practicing, fully expecting to fail repeatedly. Implementation: after each short practice, note one lesson from your failure. Maybe you realize your hand position is off or your vocabulary recall is weak. Why it works: you desensitize yourself to failure, seeing it as the stepping stone Manson describes. Over a few weeks, watch your skill climb. These are just a few strategies to get the ball rolling. Remember, Manson's entire point in these chapters is that life is messy. Happiness is about choosing which messes are worth your energy. And to do that effectively, you must practice, rewire your beliefs, and be honest with yourself. Manson's final message reminds us that, ultimately, we are the authors of our own life stories. Not by controlling every event, but by choosing how we respond, which values we chase, and which boundaries we set. Our time is finite, so let's not waste it giving a damn about every petty inconvenience or craving constant external validation. Thanks so much for taking this deep dive journey. If you enjoyed this, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share. And hey, leave a comment below about which chapter's concept most blew your mind. Are you finally ready to say no to those toxic relationships? Are you pumped to fail your way toward a new skill? Or maybe you're looking at your own mortality with new eyes, thinking, time to drop the small stuff and live bigger. Let's keep this dialogue alive. After all, we're building a community of people who want to care less but care better. If you have questions, experiences, or additional insights, toss them in the comments. I love reading about your personal transformations, big or small. And if you want more content like this, let me know which authors or books you want us to tackle next. Finally, remember, Manson's bold approach isn't about cynicism or apathy. It's about focusing your limited energy on the values and struggles that truly align with who you are. That's the true art of not giving a damn. So go forth, embrace your flaws, say yes only to what sets your soul on fire, and let the rest roll off your back. You've got this. This is your life. Make it count. Until next time, my friends, thank you for watching, and remember, it's not about having zero problems. It's about finding the problems worth suffering for. See you in the next video.